This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. So today was the premiere of Tabloids on Trial, where we see Prince Harry once again being the dragon slayer in taking on the evil British tabloids. Premiering on ITV tonight, Tabloids on Trial featured Hugh Grant, Prince Harry, Charlotte Church, and Paul Gascoigne, and a few others who opened up in this deep dive documentary about the fight for justice in the extensive phone hacking scandal and subsequent legal battles. So I watched this whole documentary tonight, and my overall opinion is that this was extremely manipulative. But if you know nothing about what has been going on, and you were just watching TV, you would find that it made for good television. Not gonna lie, whoever produced this did a great job weaving in and out the various clips, as well as the music to go with it, as well as how they told this story. I don't disagree that what happened back in the 90s with this phone hacking scandal was absolutely horrific. Take Prince Harry out of the equation for a second. You cannot deny that this phone hacking scandal was bad. Many people were affected, and their privacy was violated in ways to which it did draw paranoia, did affect people's lives from a mental health perspective. The individual stories of Charlotte Church and Paul Gascoigne were definitely moving, designed to pull on the heartstrings of the audience. But because we know how Meghan and Harry weaponized the media and use the media to manipulate the public opinion, you start looking at whatever they're involved with differently. You start to recognize the patterns as well as the same people and same script. This documentary is all part of the show to help influence, even if it is subconscious, the justices that are looking over these cases. Make no mistake about it, this has been publicized everywhere in the UK.
A legacy of paranoia and broken relationships. And none have played out more publicly, perhaps, than those affecting Prince Harry.
Harry's girl to dump him. Seems as though they knew something before I even did.
As well as phone hacking, Mirror Group newspapers commissioned private investigators to blag the flight information, credit card details or phone bills of Prince Harry's then girlfriend, Chelsea Davy. What sort of feelings does a headline like that create in you?
Gives him paranoia and fear and worry, concern, distrust around the people around you. Clearly, a headline like that has absolutely no public interest, whatsoever. There's a big difference between what interests the public and what is public interest. So, what happens in my private life between myself and then girlfriend is exactly that, between us.
Other victims of hacking that I've spoken to have described the paranoia that it creates. Do you identify with that?
I think paranoia it's a very interesting word because, yes, then it could be paranoia. But then when you're vindicated, it proves that you weren't being paranoid. Same with my mother. There is evidence to suggest that she was being hacked in the mid-90s, probably one of the first people to be hacked. And yet, still today, the tabloid press, very much enjoy painting her as being paranoid. But she wasn't paranoid. She was absolutely right of what was happening to her. And she's not around today to find out the truth.
Does your mother motivate you in this legal fight?
Yeah. There's all sorts of things that motivate me.
While it's never been proven in court that Princess Diana was hacked, the past remains raw.
So a couple things to notice here. There's a bit of manipulation going on in this segment where Harry is talking about his mom and people calling her paranoid. And here he is making it sound as if, indeed, Diana was hacked. I think it's kind of weak of ITV to then go off camera and just casually say, well, there never has been any kind of evidence that Diana was hacked in a court of law. So, maybe that's not totally accurate, but you notice how smooth and quick they made it sound. Like, why didn't she propose that to Harry and have him answer it. Oh, it's because this was completely scripted. And then the question about if his mother is the one who motivates him to go ahead and seek this justice, he's like, yeah, but there are other things that motivate him. Well, I think we all know what those other things are, like the battle axe at home, as well as the prospect of all this money that he probably was sold on in order to pursue this. Now, listen to what Harry says next. To me, it makes absolutely no sense.
Some will question whether there's an element of payback here too.
No, I know that it is clear now to everybody that the risk of taking on the press and the risk of such retaliation from them by taking these claims forward, it's clearly not in my interest to do that. Look at what has happened in the last 4 years to me, my wife, and my family, right? So that was a very hard decision for me to make, which is how bad is it going to get?
You can see here, look, the journalist is equally confused. Like, okay, then why are you doing this if you know that there's going to be all this retaliation? Just go live your life, keep your family safe. Why are you going to pursue this? Like, what would be your purpose in doing that? And here, the journalist then proceeds to poke those questions, but she does it very delicately.
Some people would say that you taking on these high-profile battles, but that actually attracts more attention onto you.
There is more than enough attention on me and my wife anyway. They pushed me too far. It got to a point where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
And knowing what we know, Harry is not being honest here. We know that he's doing this for retaliation. We know that he's doing this for the money. And we know that he's doing this to silence the free press. This is why he's doing it. So for him to contradict himself now and saying, well, they pushed me too far and I had to get out of there. The frustrating thing is Harry's talking out of both sides of his mouth when his wife is calling up the Paps for them to take photos of her in parking lots, as well as every day they're shoving their names in our faces in the media. So what do you expect, Harry? You're putting this stuff out here and people are legitimately calling you out on your bullshit. Harry keeps talking about this totalitarian mission that he and his buddies from the censorship industrial complex are on to shut down the free press. And he feels that he was the chosen one to do it to the British media, which I would hope people in the UK wake the F up to see what this guy has been doing, because he's over here influencing policies, writing papers, or actually funding research papers in order for it to affect and influence laws in various countries.
I don't think there's anybody else in the world that is better suited and placed to be able to see this through than myself.
And this is what really grinds my gears, is that nobody elected you, Harry, to be the chosen one to go ahead and take on this mission of shutting down free speech. The thing that's irritating is that these two morons are the ones who are gaslighting the world by not only lying, but purposely causing division and chaos. And they know exactly what they're doing because this is the woke playbook. This is what Meghan and her online Sussex terror group have been doing. They know how to be bullies. They know how to cause trouble and controversy, and they're doing it on purpose because at some point somebody's going to snap. And it's not because people don't like them, it's because they're provoking people to go ahead and do these things.
It's still dangerous, and all it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads this stuff to act on what they have read, and whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is. And these are things that are a genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country.
You see what I mean? It's almost like Harry is setting the narrative and stage because we all know that this assassination attempt with Donald Trump is going to come up in his security case because these two think that they're on this type of global status where they're so hounded by the paparazzi. But meanwhile, Meghan has to call the paparazzi because nobody really cares to take photos of them. And they actually have to pay fans to go and sit there and pretend to be in love with Harry and fawn over Meghan. Like, it's quite pathetic and sad sad that they have to do that, all to keep this facade that they're so hounded by the press and Meghan has to be protected because everybody in the UK is so racist. Throughout this documentary, you see David Sherborne popping up with all these celebrities who have taken the newspaper to court and, for the most part, been settling out of court with the paper paying out undisclosed amounts. And you start to realize, after seeing what has been going on with Prince Harry, what this grift really is. It's the same characters. You've got Hugh Grant in the mix of all of it from Hacked Off. You have Graham Johnson, and we'll get to him in a second. And then you have Prince Harry, who has been this so-called dragon slayer. In my opinion, I think this is one big money scam. David Sherborne has done so many of these cases in getting them to settle that I could only assume that he has this template that he's following, and I think that they might have been a little surprised when this time around the newspaper said, no, we're not going to be taken for a ride again, and we'll see this out to trial. And that's where we are right now. And this is why we're seeing all this effort to revisit the past and sell the public on how wronged Harry was. Because everybody else in this documentary had reached a settlement. Harry's the only one that has not been given the option of a settlement.
Prince Harry and others are due to take on The Sun next year. The paper's publisher have so far avoided trial by offering huge settlements without accepting liability, as they did with Hugh Grant.
If you're innocent, why do you shove so much money at someone not to go to court?
And there's your answer. That should tell you enough as to why the newspaper chose not to settle with Prince Harry.
He had been determined to take his case all the way to trial, but settled in recent months.
The rules of civil litigation are designed to prevent cases going to court. They want to keep the courts unclogged. And therefore, if you turn down a big settlement, say, I want my day in court, and you go on, and the judge finally, at the end of the trial, says, I find in your favour, Mr. Grant, but I'm giving you this settlement. And if it's 1 penny less than that settlement that you were offered by the other side earlier, months earlier, you have to pay both sides' costs, which I was advised in this case would be about 10 million quid. And much as I want these things to come to light in a trial, I shied at that fence. 10 million quid, it's too much.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry's case, accusing The Sun of unlawful information gathering, continues. Are you determined to go all the way to trial, whatever the cost?
That is the plan. If I can get to trial.
I don't buy that for a second. And what he says next, I don't buy that either.
Then we're talking over a decade's worth of evidence, most of which has never, ever been known to the public. That's the goal.
So should we assume that Meghan is back at the Olive Garden Castle? Instead of making jam, she's creating this magical evidence? Or did they leave it up to Graham Johnson to come up with this magical evidence, just like what he did to Christine Hart and Gavin Burrows?
There are accusations flying on both sides. Recently, Prince Harry was asked to explain how some of his own messages were apparently destroyed, a judge ordering him to search for deleted online exchanges with his biographer.
This is never talked about again. Harry doesn't even answer this question.
Some will say there have been multiple criminal investigations, there have been convictions, millions of pounds have been paid out in compensation. Some will wonder, why are you still fighting?
This journalist never asked Harry that question to his face as to what happened to all those messages. Instead, they casually mention it, but then quickly move on to this topic of criminal charges.
Because that evidence needs to come to the surface. And then after that, the police can then make their mind up, because this country and the British public deserve better.
Being that Piers Morgan is listed in this lawsuit, you can guarantee that Meghan most definitely wants to see Piers Morgan criminally charged, and she's putting Harry up to taking this to the very end.
Prince Harry's mission stands in stark contrast to his brother's approach. In 2020, Prince William reportedly settled out of court with News Group newspapers for what's been described as a very large sum of money.
Money that I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, was given to Prince Harry to start Invictus Games. Now, don't quote me on that, but that's what I heard around town.
To what extent do you think that your determination to fight the tabloids destroyed the relationship with your family?
I think there's, that's certainly a central piece to it.
Do you know why that is, Prince Harry? Why the British media and now the American media slam you? Is because you keep changing your story. Your wife has been lying nonstop. You have been trashing your family not only on Oprah, but also in Spare, and then you do a 6-hour mockumentary on Netflix. You can't blame the media for that. This guy, you can see on his face, has some regrets, but he'll never openly admit that the choices he made might not have been the best choices, and his ego will not allow him to accept that his brother was right this whole entire time, and look where his life is now. And you gave it all up for what?
But, that's a hard question to answer, because anything I say about my family results in a torrent of abuse from the press.
Well, I don't think it's that hard. I mean, you can start by telling the truth. You could also stop contacting the press and gaslighting not only the world, but also your family. In addition, maybe tell your Sussex goons to back the F off and harassing and threatening journalists, let alone setting up journalists and paying Byline Investigate to attack the family that you so-called love, as well as attempt to ruin and sabotage the career of a journalist. I think you have no business having any say in how the media should be transformed.
I've made it very clear that this is something that needs to be done. It would be nice if we did it as a family. I believe that, again, from a service standpoint and when you're in a public role, that these are the things that we should be doing.
And again, this is the arrogance that I just can't stand. Harry, you walked away from royal life and your duty. You're over here in America. Nobody elected you to take on this role to shut down free speech. Not here, nor in the UK.
For the greater good. But, I'm doing this. I'm doing this for my reasons.
Pick a lane, Harry. Are you doing this because you're selfless and you're living a life of service, or you're doing it for your own purpose? I mean, you just said for my reasons, which indicates that it's about you. Like everything else, I'm not buying this flipping back and forth with this fake compassion. On one hand, you're doing this for the greater good, but then on the other hand, it's about you and your reasons. I mean, get the F out of here.
What do you think of their decision not to fight in the way that you have?
I think everything that's played out has shown people what the truth of the matter is. For me, the mission continues, but it's caused, as you say, part of a rift.
I think it's a good thing that the royal family is not in support and jumping on this quest with Prince Harry to shut down freedom of the press. This Yahoo is over here in the United States with other Yahoos who are doing exactly that. And I do believe that Harry wants to implement the system that we have here with this controlled media and the manipulation and deploy it over in the UK. Hence the reason why he's on this mission and says that he's the only one that can do it, because he knows, him and his friends at Aspen, who think that they know better than everyone else, has the solution to control information so feelings don't get hurt. Also, the dirty, corrupted little secrets that they don't want to get out. The people that want censorship are the ones that have the most to hide.
You said in court documents that the Queen, your granny as you call her, supported your claim. What do you think she would think of what you're doing now?
I wish we had many conversations before she passed.
Liar.
This is very much something that she supported.
Liar.
She knew how much this meant to me. I think she's very much up there going, see this through to the end, without question.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And this man's arrogance, he thinks he's like so much superior than the rest of us, that he is a global and public figure, that he has this responsibility for humanity. Shut the F up, man. Shut up. In my opinion, I think the main reason for why he's going through with these ridiculous lawsuits is because his wife put him up to it. No doubt she had been slithering in his ear saying, you should really sue them. We could get a lot of money for it because you were wronged. You were so wronged. And look at what they did to me. Of course, like an idiot, listened to everybody around him to move forward with this, but he's only sinking himself further in debt. Just because he won one part of the lawsuit doesn't mean that it makes up for all the other lawsuits that have been lost already. And what this documentary didn't do was highlight the fact that he lost several components of these lawsuits. They highlighted it as if he had won and now he's going on to the next phase. But that's not the case. What is really eye-opening is the hatred that Harry has for his family. This response that he gives when asked about them, he doesn't want to talk about it. So he deflects.
Both your father and your sister-in-law have been unwell. It's a reminder, I guess, to all of us that life is precious. Does it ever just make you think, this is not worth it? Life is just too short for these legal battles.
I think the journalist could have done a little bit better with this question in getting Harry to realize that life is short and all this quibbling that's going on between him and his brother as well as his family is not worth it. But Harry doesn't pick up on that. And in fact, he completely dismisses and doesn't even share any kind of emotion as to how this bickering and media that he so claims has affected his family is, a wasted time. And she's right. They shouldn't be wasting precious moments considering his father and his sister-in-law are treating cancer.
I don't think the continuation of these legal battles is the sort of, the two things are completely separate. My father and my sister-in-law and me, following through on these legal battles are two completely different things.
I think the journalist was trying to get him to realize that life is too short for this, but Harry, being defiant as he is and almost enraged that this question was even asked, doesn't want to talk about it. Like he doesn't want to acknowledge or admit, because I think his pride is getting in the way.
The scars run deep, and this is far from over for the prince. On the horizon is another civil claim against the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday.
So this is the last point that I want to make. Harry has this other lawsuit against the Daily Mail in which Gavin Burrows had contested whatever was submitted to the courts, indicating that he never signed the documents that were submitted. And who was involved? Graham Johnson. Now, I keep mentioning this guy's name all throughout this video. So Graham Johnson actually was one of the original hackers, and he so-called flipped, whether it be a shorter or lighter prison sentence during this time when the phone hacking scandal had broke out. But he ended up joining forces with Hugh Grant, and he is a professed liar. I mean, I don't know where Harry finds these people, but he's involved with this. And what's interesting is that Gavin Burrows was a part of The Princes and the Press. And The Princes and the Press was another one of these pro-Sussex documentaries showcasing how bad the British tabloids were, not only to the royal family, but to Meghan and Harry. And what was interesting is that in the credits, Graham Johnson's name pops up as the hacking consultant. So BBC paid him for here, and Graham Johnson gets paid for ITV because his name now shows up in the credits for being the so-called consultant. Do you see what's going on here? Now, this last bit to wrap this all up. Remember that expose that Dan Wooten did exposing Harry for working with Byline Investigates? The ones that did a hit piece out on his own family? It was Graham Johnson who Harry had been working with this whole time. So put everything together now. You have The Princes and the Press. Graham Johnson is the hacking consultant. Graham Johnson is also writing hit pieces in Byline Investigates, which Byline Investigates then fed for the hit piece in Byline Times, which Harry was a part of. Then now you have this documentary of which Graham Johnson is involved in. Same story, same script. And this is all for this court case. Now, do you understand what's going on here? This was an attack piece against his family. Make no mistake about it. Harry did this to show that, yeah, he was wronged in so many different ways and that his family was so unsupportive. And yeah, my brother got paid off, but I am fighting the good fight. All painting a narrative to essentially take revenge. And even though Harry says that no, he's not doing this for retaliation, you bet he is. He's doing this 100% for retaliation because the whole last 6 years, with all these clapbacks and how Meghan and Harry weaponize the media and position and try to pull on the heartstrings and cheat the public, is what they're all about. And this court case that we're seeing unfold right now is what is happening. In my opinion, this is a big scam. And all this show that we're seeing at this moment is all smoke and mirrors to pull a fast one over the justice to sway in his direction and as well to help Harry's security case. That's just my opinion on how I see things the way that it is. But what do you guys think? Do you feel sorry for Harry in this documentary? I don't. But I think some people might because of how they put it together. And this is the power of storytelling. Everything that Meghan talks about in storytelling and the narratives, they don't care if they lie. They're going to continue keeping on with these lies and tell these stories in a way. At some point, this is what they did during World War II with the Holocaust is, they brainwash people. These two are no better than the Nazis back in Germany. No better, because they're doing exactly the same exact thing. What I think should happen, and I don't disagree with Harry that there needs to be a transformation with the media, but in the way of putting accountability to these journalists to not push out propaganda. So Harry wants this utopia where all nice things are being said and his lies being supported and carried out. That's why he's mad. He's mad because his family and the institution did not lie for them and support their narratives. That's why he's mad. The reform that we need here is to hold the propagandists accountable and their feet to the fire when they lie, when they're paid off by the PR companies. See, Harry wants in the UK what we have over here. Make no mistake about it. He wants to be able to control the narrative, to change history, and to make him look like the rock star that he thinks he is, and to improve his wife's reputation. No matter what they do, these two really have totally ruined their chances of any comeback, in my opinion. But that's just my thoughts. What do you guys think? Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
I was such a fraud.